A lot of musicians in the 60s were using heroin, which is a more potent form, or like it's a half synthetic. It's an opioid. Morphine is an opiate, and heroin is an opioid. I guess you could be quite sharp on it also. That's why Hitler liked Oikodal, which is oxycontin, oxycodone, and he injected that.
Which is another opiate, heroin-like.
It was a product by the Merck company from Darmstadt, Germany. They made Oikodal, which when Germany lost the war, the patent was basically taken by America and then ended up in oxycodone. So if you inject Oikodal, that was a very popular drug in the 20s because apparently it gives you the most beautiful high on earth. You're like super high, like you feel extremely well and you can think very clearly. And you feel like this is how life should feel. High on Oikodal. This is like Klaus Mann, the son of Thomas Mann. He used Oikodal. Quite a few doctors actually used it also, and probably quite a few Jewish doctors also used it because this was like a doctor's drug. Doctors knew how to, set the injection, and it was, a great experience. And Hitler, he really loved to be on Oikodal. Like he would use Oikodal every second day. In the beginning, 10 milligrams intravenously, then he raised to 20 milligrams. And I spoke to someone who's actually done exactly that drug application because I wanted to know how Hitler felt. And I didn't feel like doing it myself for some reason. I don't like needles. So I didn't want to put a needle in my vein to have like the Hitler drug experience. I should have done it. Like a proper historian never does that, okay? So but I thought I should take quite a few drugs that I write about to understand it better. But this drug I didn't take. I never shot oxycodone intravenously into my veins. But I met someone who did, and he said it's like the king's high. If you do that properly, obviously you get addicted to it.
I'd be scared to try.
Very intense experience.
I think it's a very badass thing to do for a historian, by the way. But I think it's a big risk. I think there is a risk that comes along with it, right?
Well, but not for Hitler because he got the Oikodal from the pharmacy. He knew exactly, like his doctor knew exactly what was inside. It was made by a pharmaceutical company.
No, I mean the risk of addiction.
Yeah, that is a big risk. But there's also the risk of getting impure stuff and like heroin on the street and die from an overdose. But the addiction thing is I think it happens quite quickly with Oikodal because it's such a great feeling. So why wouldn't you do it over and over again? And then the opioid receptors in the brain want you to take it. And if you don't take it, you get withdrawal symptoms and you feel like shit and you have to. So that's the problem with opioids, with morphine. That's what happens. Yeah. And that's what happened to Hitler.
I generally say yes to most things. But those drugs, like cocaine doesn't scare me. Heroin scares me. Like the opioids scare me. Oxycodone scares me.
Because they really make you physically dependent. I don't even know if cocaine makes you physically dependent. It makes you psychologically addicted. But you have to get it. Otherwise you feel bad. That's a physical, terrible
and also
addiction.
For life to feel like less when you're not on it.
Right.
That scares me.
That's the problem also with methamphetamine. People who use a lot of methamphetamine, on days they don't use it, they don't feel great at all, especially not compared to the methamphetamine days. So that became a problem in Germany when people were really using more and more of the Pervitin.
All right, you got to take me through the full drug cocktail that Hitler was on. Patient A of Morell's. Let's start at the beginning. We're big on setting context here. So tell the story of Dr. Theodor Morell. How did he meet Hitler?
Well, Morell he had his practice on Kurfürstendamm, which is like the main boulevard of Berlin, in the west of Berlin, kind of a fancy street. And he was a celebrity doctor, which was a new type of doctor in a way, Dr. Feelgood. He kind of was one of the first Dr. Feelgood. So you didn't go to him when you had a disease. You went to him when you were, let's say you were like an opera star in the Berlin Opera and you had a big premiere. So you would go to Morell in the afternoon and he would give you a nice shot and then you would, be really good on stage. But he was not a quack. I mean, he was he just knew his drugs. And he believed in, why shouldn't you treat someone even if that person doesn't have a disease? If you can make that person feel better, it's good. Especially if that person pays. Like he said, everyone who pays and he wasn't cheap, who comes to me and wants a testosterone hormone injection or a vitamin injection or an opioid injection, you get it from him. He didn't have any scruples.
I mean, but we should also say he was pretty innovative and extremely knowledgeable. So you mentioned hormones, but also, like probiotics, like you're talking about.
Right.
Just he knew his shit.
He was a bit of a nerd.
Yeah.
He was
like a legit doctor, just didn't have boundaries about what he used.
He had a very unappealing physical appearance. And I think that was a problem for him. And he was known to have very bad eating habits, like sauce was running. And so people were easily disgusted by him. He was like an outsider. He was really like a freak. But when people looked at him after he had given them an injection and they said, thank you, and I feel so great now, that's what kind of made his day, So one day a man entered his doctor's office on Kurfürstendamm named Hubertus Hoffmann. And Hubertus Hoffmann was a photographer, and he had gonorrhea. And Morel, because he knew about alternative ways to treat, he actually cured him. Mm-hmm. And Hubertus Hoffmann said to Morel, I have a good friend and I think you should meet him. And I'm going to have a dinner in Munich and I think it would be really worth your time to come. And Morel came, and the good friend was Hitler, because Hubertus Hoffmann was the photographer of Hitler. And they were, in German we have a formal U, which is Sie. Like if I don't know you so well, I say Sie. Mm-hmm. And if you're my close friend, I say du, you. Mm-hmm. And Hitler only had like 4 people he would say you to. He was always like the Sie, like the distance. It was always about distance and respect and borders and boundaries.
What are the two again? Sie and what?
Du.
Sie and du.
Yeah, Sie is the formal one, and du is the informal one.
Yeah, in Russian there's the same thing, вы and ty, and so there's that's a big thing.
Also in French you also have that. You have that in Spanish. No, only in English you don't have it.
And it is part of the cultural sort of discourse of like when you upgrade from the V to the T, from the C to the do, or from the do to the C. From the
C to the do, that would be the upgrade, because you become more intimate.
Yeah, like, and you ask, can I go from C to do?
Yeah, like the older person must suggest it, I think.
Yeah, okay. The beautiful language.
So Hoffmann was a Du-Freund, a Dudesfreund, we say, of Hitler. Okay. So he was quite close to Hitler, and so that's why he could also make that close connection. So he had a dinner with just him, Hitler, Eva Braun, Hitler's girlfriend, and Morel came. Like they sent a plane to Berlin to pick him up, so it was like VIP treatment. It was the whole thing.
And this is
36. Yeah, they had spaghetti with tomato sauce on the side. I read there's like a description of this event. The tomato sauce was on the side, and there was muscat. What is muscat? It's a spice.
Mm-hmm.
Nutmeg.
Nutmeg.
Yeah, it was with nutmeg, which is an unusual recipe, I guess, but that's what they had. And spaghetti wasn't a fancy thing, it came from Italy, from Mussolini, who invented fascism in Italy, and who was like Hitler's role model for a long time, until Hitler surpassed him, obviously. So the spaghetti, they came from Italy, and it was like a big thing. And Morel had the big problem that spaghetti is hard to eat, right? And he couldn't even it was a catastrophe. But he got out of it because Hitler complained about stomach problems, because Hitler was a terrible vegetarian. He was a so-called cake vegetarian. He would only eat like sweets, like cake, no meat, of course, but he wouldn't eat healthy stuff, so he was bloated the whole time, because we only eat like cake and white bread, and it's not good. So he voiced that, and there was also Brandt was there, like an official doctor from the SS that was like his doctor, and Hitler said, my doctors can't cure me, and Morel was like, this is my chance, thank you God. And he told Hitler about the probiotics, which Hitler had never heard of, and also Brandt, the doctor, he hadn't heard of, because that was a new thing that you give. And Hitler was asking, what is that? And Morel said, these are live bacteria from like German soldiers from the war in the First World War that were fighting in Serbia. There was one guy who didn't get the stomach flu, and all the others like drank the water in Serbia and all got sick. But this one guy, so his bacteria, and this is a true story, his gut bacteria were cultivated into a medicine called Mutaflor. And Morel told Hitler about this, and he said, "This is amazing. Like, I have to try this, And it helped, He got the Mutaflor, he did the Mutaflor kind of therapy, and it cured him. He suddenly had no bloating anymore, and the farting of Hitler was really bad, so bad that it would it diminished his ability to work. So suddenly he could work. He felt better. He didn't have the pain. He felt great. So he really thought that Morel is a wonder doctor, and he asked Morel pretty quickly afterwards, "Do you want to be my personal physician?" And Morel was like, his wife was very much against it because she said, "If you become the personal physician of Hitler, you won't have any time for me anymore." And he said, like, "Come on, man. This is like the chance you only get once in your life."
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Hitler's a really big deal.
He's the most powerful man in Europe. And there have not been war crimes because the war hasn't started yet. Obviously, there's concentration camps and a lot of crimes have been committed, but it's also kind of hushed up. It's not such a huge thing as now we know it became. So Morel never really has any conscientious problems. He just thinks it's great. I'm going to be the doctor. I'm going to be part of history. So he becomes the personal physician, and being this vitamin guy, like vitamins were really his thing. Like he believed in the power of vitamins. And today I think we know that he was right. Vitamins are good. But back then no one knew. And Hitler was like, okay, he told Hitler, and then Hitler said, okay, I want to try this vitamins. And what they did from the beginning was injections, because Hitler didn't want to take a pill, because a pill takes too long and it goes through the tract that he has the problems with, like the digestion. Like he didn't want to take a pill. He believed in the injection. And Morel was the masterful injector. So Morel, because the needles were thicker than they are today, but Morel could give you an injection without you feeling any pain. So Hitler was quite impressed. So he got like a vitamin C injection, but Hitler loved the daily injection. So he got hooked on the daily injection. Once he got the injection, the day was good. And he never got sick, actually. And he could stand like for a long time with the arm raised. He did he went to the gym, basically. I mean, he had a gym where he was like doing exercise, so he could have the arm up for like hours when a military parade would walk by. So he was quite fit, and he was never sick, and Morel was giving him the daily injection, and they lived happily ever after, basically, until the Soviet Union attacked.
Wait, he literally lifted so you can do the Heil Hitler salute?
Yeah, I found a document for that.
That's funny. Oh God, that's dark.
He had an expander, we say. I don't know, do you use that word in English? Expander?
Oh, like a band.
Yeah, it's like this. You do like...
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, that's what he did. In
front of
the window.
Well, at least he's not doing it in front of a mirror. Okay, wow, that's dark. Okay, those little details, yet another reminder that he's just a human being.
I mean, it's hard to keep your arm up for like hours. You can't let it down. If you keep it up, that's what it's all about,
I mean, he was very much about the facade, right? He's very important to present himself in a certain kind of way when he's giving the speeches.
Yeah, everything was orchestrated. The Nazis were masters in propaganda. They really knew how to create the perfect image.
Okay, so let's go into the cocktail. Started with the vitamins. This is in 36?
Right. I think it was pretty harmless in the beginning. But the addiction to the injection was the main thing that I think happened. That Hitler needed his doctor. But from 36 to 41, only like vitamins are being injected and glucose. So I don't think it really harms you. I mean, it might benefit you. He never got sick. He was fit.
This is the thing that...
That was phase 1 of his drug use, were the vitamins, until 41.
So you think the tweaking at the Olympics, that you've talked about before, but still... So you're saying this person we're watching a video of here is not on drugs.
I don't know. I don't think so.
So the
There are
video
no
could be fake. It
records.
could be sped up.
I think it's fake because I think someone read my book that thought that Hitler was always on meth and created this, but I might be
Yeah.
wrong.
And the narrative takes hold. And I think the thing you mentioned, he could be on sugar. So it could be a lot of elements.
He was also a weird guy. Maybe he was really just rocking because
Yeah.
he was so happy what he saw, you know. Maybe
Yeah.
he really got into it. Maybe it was a sexual thing for him what he saw. I don't know. There's no document showing that he took a drug on that day. Let's put it that way.
I think I've been, especially like stay up all night. I've been fidgety. You
Yeah,
can
he
just be
was-
caught in a certain moment when you're being like very like fidgety.
I think he probably rocked a few times and then the video was cut in a
Sped
way
up.
that he rocks more or something. Also, methamphetamine wasn't yet available in 1936.
That's
so
important to say.
it's- For sure he was not. So what is said here on Hitler tweaking on meth at the 1936 Olympics is definitely false.
Okay, there you go. So when did it start getting more serious? The injection and the kind of drugs he was taking.
This was a day in August of 1941. Germany had invaded the Soviet Union on June 22nd. So this is about 6 weeks into the campaign, which was called Unternehmen Barbarossa. And Germany was doing pretty well. And it came to a crucial moment where High Command said, now we're going to take Moscow. And Hitler said, no, we're going to split up the troops and take Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, in the north, and in the south we're going to go for the oil fields, basically. That was his plan. He said, no, let's not do Moscow. And High Command was like, this is the biggest mistake. We must take Moscow. If we take Moscow, we're going to win. And Hitler became ill for the first time on the day this decision, this is a dynamic thing that's going on, you know, they're moving and now they have to decide, will we split up or we will continue towards Moscow? And he had the Russian flu, in German, the Ruhr, which is like a flu-type disease with very high fever. It comes, like they were in the field, like so they were in the east, you know, camping out. Maybe he drank water that wasn't good, or he had some, you know, they tested everything meticulously, but he got sick. High fever, he felt like shit. And he said to Morel, and you know, you can see that in Morel's notes. Like Morel describes this very vividly in his notes, which are at the Federal Archives, which no historian ever looked at except me, the non-historian, which is kind of funny. So he describes how Hitler then asks of him, basically says vitamins are not enough anymore. Like he's very weak. He must go to the military briefing. But the flu is quite a severe disease, I think. If you have a heavy flu, you really feel like you're going to die. You can't go to a military briefing. But Morel's kind of fought with himself, and then he decided to inject an opioid into Hitler's veins intravenously, like the strongest application possible. And this was Dolantin, which is a German opioid that was legal. And I was once an exchange student in Flint, Michigan, 1988, and I was number one of the tennis team because I was quite a good tennis player.
Nice.
And we were playing our main enemy. I was at Flint Powers Catholic High School in Flint, Michigan, and I think it was Power Central. And they had a number one, Mark Resteiner.
Still remember. Wow.
He was feared. And no one could beat him.
Yes.
And on the day of the match, I had the Russian flu, basically. I was the hope. I was the number one, the wonder kid from Germany. And they took me to a doctor, and the doctor gave me an injection. And I don't know until this day, because I was, kid. I got the injection. I was 17, and I felt great. Like the flu was gone like this. It was probably an opioid, something that just shuts off all the pain and gives you, energy. And I beat this guy in a way I totally. I thought of a new technique by playing like very high balls, like in the direct, like fierceful competition. I would have lost. So I played something that in Germany we call Fuddeln, which is something you don't really do. You just play high
Lobbing.
balls,
Yeah.
which is not pretty to look at,
No.
but it's very effective. And he just lost his nerve. And I beat him like 6-0, 6-0, something like that. Sensational.
Yeah.
So Hitler receives this Dolantin injection, and he gets up, he goes into the meeting room, he dominates the meeting room, he feels great. He decides, in front of everybody, no one overpowers him in that meeting. He was very good in the room. And the troops are split up. Like Leningrad is now a target. This weakens the general thrust towards Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably why they didn't take Moscow. They probably could have taken it, or maybe not. But the decision was made in August to.
I think it's one of the biggest blunders of the Eastern
not take
Front.
Moscow.
To not take Moscow. I think they had a straight shot given the disorganization.
They had the one-time moment where they could have done it. And the German war machine could only win in so-called speed wars, like lightning war, only if they would do it very fast and surprise, because they were always weaker, basically. They just had this moment, this dynamic moment. And this was fueled by the methamphetamine. Also in the Soviet Union, hundreds of millions of dosages were given. So the Germans were really going. And at one point, this ends, You can't take meth for the rest of your life. You're just going to end up being a nervous wreck. But you can do it for like 2 months, you could do it. But then it stops.
I think if you're really honest about where you have the asymmetry of power, which is in the speed of the blitzkrieg. So that's similar to Genghis Khan, who had a very small military, but their advantage was, I think at the peak it would be probably 100,000. But every soldier of Genghis Khan's had 5 horses. So the whole point was they can move really fast. They not just fast, but they can move on all terrain. So they can go around. If wars were fought on normal roads, you were supposed to travel a certain kind of way. If you go fast and around, not on paths that are usually taking attack from all kinds of sides, that's why you can conquer as much as Genghis Khan was able to conquer. And the same thing with the Nazi forces. This is their biggest advantage, and not using that is essentially the end of its effectiveness.
I think that's also why the tank troops were such a good weapon, because they can go off-road, while military vehicles, cars, cannot do it. Like a tank can even go through a forest and just kill small trees and just run over it. So that was those are kind of the 5 horses that was the idea that they had at this working breakfast. That's what they presented to Hitler. We're going to use the tank force in a very different way, and that's going to enable us to win the lightning war campaigns.
Was that one of the first times he tried an opiate like that, an intense one?
That was the first time.
And then that was it for him. He loved it.
Not immediately. Like you can see when you study his medications that is a turning point in a way that now he deviates from the vitamins. Like he becomes more interested in what's out there. And like from 41 to 43, he tries out a lot of medications that he didn't try out before. Before that, it was quite conventional, mostly vitamins and glucose. But now he becomes experimental, and he discusses this with Morel, and Morel is also very experimental. Like they really nerded themselves into like, what can we use? Like bull's testicle extracts. So Morel, in order to present those things to his patient A, he created a pharmaceutical company that he ran. He was the personal physician of Hitler, and he was also the CEO of Hammer Pharmaceuticals, which had its production site in occupied Czechoslovakia. And for example, at one point when Germany had invaded the Ukraine, Morel asked for a monopoly for all the organs of all the slaughtered animals from all the slaughterhouses in the Ukraine. So this was a huge logistical operation. Like all the slaughtered animals, all the organs were removed for the personal physician of the Führer, sent in military trains back to the factory in occupied Czechoslovakia, And like the military became really upset with that because they said, we need our trains to transport back our wounded soldiers. Now we're like, cars are full with like offal and pigs' hearts and pigs and livers, and it was totally bizarre. And but Morel then became like, he was this like good-natured Dr. Feelgood in the beginning, and then when the Ukraine was occupied, he became this like business freak who like made a lot of money with his dubious hormonal concoctions, where like he would threaten the army, if you don't let the train with my raw materials go to my factory, I will tell Hitler and you will have a problem. He was acting like that. He became quite an asshole, actually. And a war criminal, because he also, at his factory where he would make the famous pig liver extract that was then tested by Hitler, and Hitler said that's a good medication. I have more energy, so this can also be sold to the German military. That's how it worked, because the regulations at the time were that it was very difficult to bring out a new medication onto the market, because medications, to bring them onto the market, you need certain test phases and all of that stuff. So that's hard to do in a war, especially in World War II. So Hitler said to Morel, I'm going to be your guinea pig. You just make it in your factory. I test it. And if I think it's good, then I'm just going to write today you would say like a decree, because I'm the president, I can like order it that it's going to be legal all over Germany.
So Hitler was a real drug guy. He liked drugs.
Well, he liked to experiment, I would say, with drugs and with Morel. They never, like, he was against drugs, he was.
But that's a crazy thing for a guy who didn't do anything, right?
It's a big contradiction, or it's a big irony, or it's very weird.
But isn't it even a bit of a mystery? Because at that stage, I'm sure he was paranoid about being killed and all that kind of stuff. So he must have really trusted Morel, right?
Yeah, he trusted Morel because Morel was not part of any organization. He was the loner coming from the VIP doctors, his own VIP doctor's office, and now he was basically Hitler's toy. Like, Hitler could get access to all kinds of medications through him, and Morel would never say it to anybody. He would just write it down.